In the savannas of East Africa, nestled in the heart of the wilderness, Kenya was home to deeply rooted peoples such as the Kikuyu, Luo, and Kalenjin. With its fertile lands and strategic location, this geography had been a land where indigenous tribes lived in peace for centuries. However, in the late 19th century, arriving British forces moved to turn these lands into their private estates and enslave the people. This was the epic story of the Mau Mau fighters who fearlessly rose against colonialism in the rugged forests of Kenya. In the late 19th century, the British began building a massive railway stretching from Mombasa to Uganda to control trade routes in East Africa. With this project, British settlers seized Kenya's most fertile lands, the White Highlands. The indigenous population was driven from their ancestral lands, pushed into unproductive reserves, and reduced to tenant farmers in their own homeland. Land grabbing ignited the fury in Kenya. The British colonial administration crushed the Kenyan people with heavy taxes and racial segregation policies. Black Kenyans had to carry passports to travel within their own country. While the most fertile lands were reserved exclusively for white settlers, the indigenous people were condemned to live in poverty and misery. The continuous rejection of peaceful efforts to seek rights by the British administration left the people with no choice but armed resistance. In the early 1950s, indigenous tribes, led primarily by the Kikuyu people, united under a secret organization called the Mau Mau movement. Retreating into the mountains and forests, Mau Mau fighters launched a guerrilla war against British colonialism and white farm owners. Bound by nighttime raids and oath-taking ceremonies, this secret army struck terror into the British military and collaborators. Kenya's forests became home to ghosts fighting against the colonizers. To crush the Mau Mau resistance, Britain implemented one of the most ruthless repression regimes in history against Kenyan peasants. Hundreds of thousands of Kenyans were locked inside concentration camps surrounded by barbed wire. Villages were burned, and fields were poisoned. The British Army and Loyalist troops carried out systematic torture, mass executions, and inhumane massacres against the insurgents. These camps went down in history as Kenya's gulags. Dedan Kimathi, the foremost leader of the Mau Mau movement, was a military genius coordinating guerrilla warfare in the forests and a symbol of freedom. Despite all British efforts to capture him for years, Kimathi kept the spirit of resistance alive among the people. Although his capture when wounded in 1956 and subsequent execution were a major loss, the flame of freedom ignited by the Mau Mau could no longer be extinguished. The Mau Mau uprising was militarily suppressed by the British, but its financial and political cost to Britain was immense. The British government realized it could not hold on to Kenya by military force for long. This process paved the way for national independence negotiations led by political leaders like Jomo Kenyatta. The bloody price of war had unlocked the door to political victory. With the release of Jomo Kenyatta, who had been imprisoned and exiled for years, Kenya moved rapidly toward independence. On December 12, 1963, Kenya officially declared its independence, bringing an end to British colonial rule. Jomo Kenyatta took office as the new country's first prime minister, later president. At midnight on December 12, 1963, the Union Jack was lowered for the last time at Nairobi Stadium, replaced by Kenya's black, red, and green flag. Years of land grabs, torture, and exploitation had come to an end. As British troops and settlers left the country, the Kenyan people experienced the pride of becoming masters of their own soil. The streets of Nairobi burst into joyous celebrations, attended by thousands of Kenyans. The suffering endured for years in concentration camps and forests gave way to songs of freedom. Kenya took a step into a new era to heal the wounds of the past and build the future with the spirit of Harambee. Let's pull together. The story of Kenya proved how a people's belief in freedom and land could never be suppressed, even under the harshest conditions. But what happened in that distant geography in the rich islands of the Pacific, where they had to fight against two different colonial powers at once? In our next video, we will witness the epic struggle for independence of the Philippines against Spanish and American colonialism. Stay tuned.